You get born, you make mistakes, but you also walk over others, you bully them, you dismiss their issues. You bully them in school, you dismiss their issues. You create a toxic environment where people get hurt and then get blamed and shamed and everything for getting hurt. Join armies to rape and assault people. This is why you join them. Hate others, and you get away with it. Justify it with religion. You take away things from people's lives. You take art away. You take sexuality away. You take expression away. Those clothes being inappropriate, or someone being gay, that is a problem somehow. Your bullying holds people back from getting jobs themselves or care for someone that can't care for themselves properly or help each other. Well, you're neglecting people that are getting molested and shit. And on top of it, you're proud of your ancestors' rapes and torture. I can agree that having negative experiences can make you go insane and make you do horrible things. But there is also letting it get to that point. Sometimes you don't want to care if you were born that way because you always prey on others' empathy for you. You want them to fight for you, but will you fight for them? Fight to protect myself, I get invalidated, missed and blamed. Most people do not immediately care or understand why they should care about anyone besides themselves and their families. The world is larger than you. This doesn't mean that your emotional expression should be oppressed or that your sexual expression should be oppressed. That is, unless you are assaulting or harassing someone, and then you may be allowed to say some things, but if the person is uncomfortable, it's okay to stop. I mean, you shouldn't find fun in your life. It doesn't mean you're supposed to work absolutely constantly. However, it's important to manage even joy with work, because you can't work properly past a point. Become mentally and physically ill if you don't find the proper balance that you need. People use others and push them off balance and don't give them resources to find balance and create excuses to not give them balance, all with that natural selection or superiority again. That all comes from not understanding that power is relative on one front and not even caring about others beyond oneself again. Because everything is going well for you now does not mean you made all the right decisions or considered others in the way you should have when you were getting there. Or that you had the same problems that someone else has that debilitate them but not you. I want to talk to you, I don't want to convince you. I don't want to be with you. If you're gonna be that kind of person. Talk to you and I have to be with you because if I say what I really think or express how I feel, you will make it very problematic. They're so deep into their bullshit that when they hurt someone they can't comprehend why they would be upset as if it's somehow fair. A living being with needs, a natural expression that really doesn't hurt anyone by itself. You could argue it can hurt people by proxy, but you can say that about almost anything. Really here to be a hollow shell that just lets everything pass and does nothing with its life. A vessel for God, but what God are you for? One who is extreme pain and agony, that the God wanted it, and that they shouldn't try to improve their situation because that would be degenerate. Factor shame about sexuality is that drives people further into indulging in it and perverting it because you keep acting like there is something wrong with it. If it turns out to be wrong for some reason, you're not sympathetic or understanding to why someone would feel a different way. Also, that thought makes me feel with extreme grief and pain because it's unacceptable to think that one sin is equal to another. Something is a sin at all. Do a lot of irreconcilable things to exist on the most basic level, to kill animals, to keep living. These are all kind of things that are considered normal by people who never really understood them and never tried to understand why someone would have a problem with it. Someone can grow up with nausea, pain, brain fog, headaches, existential issues, not ability to move or express properly, not ability to even eat properly for years, and you act like they are fine because they didn't display too many extreme things. Because you think this is a movie where if someone feels a certain way, they will have an extreme emotional expression constantly around you, when that would be really bad for them, partially first, also health-wise. Then it's also nobody when they're sad, they're actually sad in an extreme way all the time. They are not crying their eyes out for 24 hours. Angry, they are not destroying things constantly for 24 hours. People with chronic pain are forced to work and smile, and they also want to experience other things and express other emotions and focus on other things besides their problems. Most of the time I don't want to express my emotions because I know people will be nasty about it, or so I believe from my experiences and observations, which I somewhat explained, but a bunch of stuff including astrology, tarot or religion has been telling me that I need to express my emotions. The only people that I've seen who have expressed those kind of emotions are not ending well. People just like to flick it off. It's so weird and pointless that they do it. Everybody feels that way, though. Everybody feels that way. And no, maybe you don't feel that way to that extent. You somehow just keep coming up with ways and ways to invalidate something. Where the hell is that coming from? You're comfortable with your misery, but if someone else is trying to find their way, you have to put them down. Expression is triggering you. You get triggered about people expressing their emotions. I also feel extreme anger, but I'm saying this to express anxiety because my thoughts keep swirling around at what are you gonna think, what are you gonna do. Anything you say is a subject to judgment of others, but I don't believe anything you say has the same weight and implications and will be judged as harshly as what anyone else does. We're not equals. We're about fairness. All of this means that if you're genuine, you're generally alone. You're not alone, of course, because they try to lie to you about it, that no one cares, but that's just them. Try to do something, it's keep it to yourself. When they do something, I have to create some bullshit excuse to counter them on the same level, to suppress them. And this, of course, is not how my mind works by default, and it's draining and it's pointless to do it because what they do doesn't make sense, but everything has to be about manipulation. People want manipulation from what I can tell. Again, observations on their actions and their thoughts and what they express. You can say it comes from a hurt place, but how aren't we all hurt? Some of us are at least trying to do something about it while they keep everyone else down. Some people are comfortable being on the top even if they're suffering. Others makes them feel good. They don't realize that they're exploiting someone or think it's natural, or even if it doesn't make them feel good directly, by their awareness of it. They may not realize they're hurting someone or being unfair, but they just project weakness on you, and that's somehow your fault. That they are taking advantage of you, and that they aren't actually taking advantage of you, but it's just how things work. You don't realize if they're suppressing you, you decline and underperform, while they're focusing on improving their skills, or getting more money, or more items, or whatever they need, that they don't actually really need, but it gives them in a more secure position above you, while they are focused on themselves. That the problems they cause others don't exist. Stressed by a lot of spiritual people who seem to be very cold about those issues. Those people are often not even thinking about the worst of the worst things possible and that are happening, and focus on the positives, which makes them unable to relate to people in realities that they can't just simply ignore. So they're not actually helping me much, or I don't feel like they are on that front. If you're a dear being dismissive, because they judge you for having negative emotions about those negative things, or even insinuating that hurting someone is somehow necessary, because again, it happens that other people do it and you need to find your way to move forward, and this way is very often through other people. Abundance mindset, that's kinda bullshit, because I'm not really sure that everything is just abundant and you can do whatever you want and that someone else can always find a way. But faith is blind. Being afraid of being responsible. People who's expressing their genuine emotions seem to be more successful, or sometimes the ones who are somewhat innocent or clueless, because then no one suspects them or judges them as harshly. They can laugh at them, but they're generally in a more favorable environment for that. The point of not expressing things is that you learned adaptations to cope. If you say you get bad vibes from me, so do I, and I'm upset because of it too. It's this spiritual idea that you should forgive everything, that everything is planned, that no one really cares about anyone, that the rationality is evil, which means also there is no fairness, or that you can't understand it, so you're not allowed to make moral decisions that you're also obligated to. So someone gets absolutely destroyed, and they're supposed to somehow accept it and just die or kill themselves or whatever, because there comes points where the only way to survive would be to hurt someone, if you can't already understand that just eating animals is like that already. But there is a difference between that kind of necessity. Of course, you can also say that it's illusory and it's actually no difference. So I mean that it's implicit in nature that someone should get abused bullied, molested, etc. And then instead of taking revenge or seeking help, because no one will help you already, the whole point is that they use that person's life to fulfill their own. And if you're spiritual, you will forgive and just die. And if you die, it also means accepting that you will not help anyone who actually needs it. Other people who get abused, and the cycle keeps continuing. And this is supposed to be irrational. The cycle of abuse and rationality is actually bad, and you have to let the cycle continue. I don't know how much of mass murders or any murders or whatever is personal responsibility versus environment. I'm sure the environment can make you go insane, and thus you commit those acts. But then people judge you. So they already hurt the person who did it to the point that they were so messed up that they did that. Because you know there is things you can't control, and then it gets to a point where you can't control it anymore. So that person may have controlled themselves in small ways that other people didn't control themselves, hence they let it all that happen. So he has to be the scapegoat of everyone else, and then they blame him if he does the thing. But if he does it to himself, he also gets blamed, and it's also possible that he may get some kind of hypocritical, pretentious ceremonies or expressions or words that don't mean anything for people who care. Of course, they didn't actually care. What they read for that person was not enough. Maybe someone actually did care and did as much as they could, but then that's not their fault. It doesn't mean that everyone else did the same. And there is people who think they read what they could, but never actually gave enough shit to actually do what was necessary. Not because they really couldn't. Of course it would be hard, and you can't just bear any hard. But they refused to bear what they were supposed to. Now they say you're not supposed to bear anything, and it's just irrational, and see whatever happens, and everything is justified. All of that I experience as emotional invalidation, existential invalidation, of the worst kind. So they all tell you that your life doesn't matter, or that it matters, but it doesn't matter that you're suffering so much in it. Yet they hypocritically refuse to take that suffering themselves. To reach their breaking point, they just pass it on someone else, and that's usually someone weaker. And this keeps going on until that someone is so weak that they can't pass it to anyone else and they die. Or is so empathetic that they refuse to pass it to anyone else and they die. Or they turn into mass murder because they've been weak or refusing to abuse. Mass murders are not committed by a single person who was abused. They were committed by everyone who pushed them. But they blame the person, which is a sacrifice. Most people do sacrifices just like they did ages ago, when someone would be tortured and sacrificed for the gods or the greater good. Tell you that you're a lower person for defending yourself or someone you care about. They are effectively asking you to commit suicide and telling you that you deserve to be tortured. Which again was something that was actually directly accepted and said before in human history. Because it was so in a lot of places doesn't mean it was so in everywhere, but of course the evil people took over because the weak people refused to harm someone. I don't see how it's possible to forgive if you have a moral character, if you actually care. Get taught to forgive by people, some of them are actually evil and trying to use you. Some of them seem clueless. Some of them gave up because it was too painful to hate. Maybe it's hard to do the right thing. Maybe you get destroyed in the process because the right thing is too difficult. The only right thing is to die, but again, I don't see that, because when you die, the cycles keep continuing without you, and when you are alive, maybe you can do something about it. Is it necessary to be like that? Or does it happen, and are you supposed to be here because you have to stop it? And if it turns out that you have to stop it by being passive and enduring it and just watching it, and the only point of your life is to be reproduced for years, while you get tortured and everyone you love gets tortured, until you get to some point where you don't get tortured anymore. No one who I have asked, I think, has given me a reasonable answer. Yet they judge and tell me that I don't agree with. If I'm just being dependent on people who are stupid, clueless and weak, so I go ask them what they think and they judge me. I'm actually in the wrong, and I'm the one who doesn't understand, which is why I keep asking them and trying to bring it up. It make me feel accepted, understood, or valued. I feel like most people are here for selfishness. They think they are too good to help anyone, to focus on anyone besides themselves. The difference between taking care of yourself and being self-centered. Of course, you have to do things for yourself, but you're not doing them for yourself alone. You can't help anyone if you don't help yourself to a point. When you help yourself the right way, you end up helping others. You're supposed to go with them. No one exists without the help of anyone else, without the influence of anyone else. That's the point. We are here together. You can't do anything completely alone. You always depend on the resources around you in some way or another that are influenced by other people. It's really important to respect the individual and their independence. This doesn't mean you have to sacrifice everyone else, and in fact, by sacrificing people, in the future, psychopaths and other various assholes, you get more power over you. I don't like to say this because it's not about you alone in the end. You're not supposed to care only about yourself. You take others' freedom, yours will be taken away at some point too.